sitting on a gold mine. How would your life be different if you knew you were sitting on a gold mine? And what if your treasure has been right where you are all this time? How would you act? What would you do? Who would you be? Well, I'm here to tell you that you are sitting on a gold mine and that the universe is conspiring in your favor. The beloved created you to live your best life. It gave you the talents to reach your dreams, to speak your mind, and to give your unique gift to life. This is your divine calling, to live and express your best life. Sitting on a gold mine. Well, here's one experience of how the universe conspires in your favor. See, most of you know that we've been doing some cleanup of the family house. Well, at that house, there was a stack of marble propped against the shed. Now, these are not small marbles. These are 5 foot by 5 foot slabs of marble, and not just one, but 5 slabs. Where they came from, how they got there, we do not know. We're just sitting on a gold mine. Anyhow, so they had lots of useful life left. So we decided to advertise them on Facebook Marketplace. Perhaps someone needed them. Well, someone did need them. So that morning I told Rob someone was coming to get one of the slabs. It was at this point that Rob went into engineer mode. How are we going to get this slab into this guy's vehicle? Now, it may be helpful to note that the marble was at the back of the lot at the end of a very, very steep driveway. Oh, and blocked by a car that hadn't been moved since 2010, several tons of cinder blocks, a table made of old doors, and various other debris. And did I mention the steep driveway? Anyhow, Rob is looking up how much does marble weigh? Oh, by the way, it's about 30 square foot slab weighs about 200 pounds, maybe 250. Anyhow, he concludes we can't move it, much less get it into the vehicle. In the meantime, the gentleman, let's call him Gary, is messaging me that he's getting a trailer and a helper and is on his way. Now, I do not know how the marble is going to get into the trailer, but both Gary and I are imagining the end result. I wonder if that's where the saying, see it through came from. Anyhow, by this time, Robin is more and more pessimistic and plays the it's not safe card, which now I'm starting to be concerned. But the ball is rolling, so I'm in it to win it. And I do not know how this is going to happen, but I know that it's going to happen. So we get to the house and find a neighbor trimming a small tree that spans both yards. Now, we had the best neighbors. So Rob is chatting with a neighbor when Gary arrives with his Explorer, pulling a trailer and backs into the driveway. Did I mention how steep the driveway is? Okay, anyhow, we take him to look at the slab. He wants it, and we begin to figure out how to get into the trailer. Now, I don't know how the neighbor got involved, but as it turned out, he is a retired brick mason and was quite knowledgeable about working with such materials. Plus, he had a furniture dolly. Bonus. So in the end, Gary, our neighbor, wrestled the slab to the trailer. Now, I didn't know, and perhaps you didn't know either, that marble, like glass, is stronger on edge. So laying flat is not the best position. What to do? Rob remembered the day before we noticed some 3-inch stick styrofoam flats for cushioning. Perfect solution. See, everything we need was there. Every need was met even before we knew what those needs were. Kind of like the song. So we were sitting on a gold mine, didn't know it, didn't know how that was going to happen, but knew that it was going to happen. In Genevieve Barron's book, Your Invisible Power, The Mental Science of Thomas Troward, she says, there is nothing unusual or mysterious in the idea that of your picture desire coming into material evidence. Let me say that again. There's nothing unusual or mysterious in the idea of your pictured desire coming into material evidence. It is the working of a universal law. It's a natural law. The world was projected by the self-contemplation of the universal mind. And this same action is taking place in its individualized branch, which is the mind of the human. Everything in the whole world, from the hat on your head to the boots on your feet, has beginning in mind and comes into existence in exactly the same manner. All projected thoughts solidified. And she was saying this quite some time ago. Now, what I learned from Mary Mann Morrissey is that everything happens twice, once in mind and then in our outer experience. Our fortune, our future will always be initiated in our mind. Maybe it's a gold mine. Well, anyhow, so we're sitting on a gold mine. Therefore, it makes sense that your biggest investment opportunity, listen to this, your biggest investment opportunity is sitting squarely on your shoulders. Are you investing in yourself? In the book, This Thing Called You, Dr. Holmes says, expectancy speeds progress. Therefore, live in a continual state of expectancy. No matter how much good you're experiencing today, expect greater good tomorrow. Now, imagine what would happen if we would expect the best and live that it must become part of our experience. It would eventually become ours. So what are you expecting in your life? Happiness, health, love? Maybe the opposite of those things. I have an affirmation taken directly from one of Dr. Holmes' Power for Good lessons. It says, I like this one. It says, I have listened to lies long enough and they brought me misery. Right now, I deny those false beliefs and affirm the truth. I am prosperous. I am prosperous because I choose to know that I am prosperous. I've listened to lies long enough. They brought me misery. Right now, I deny those false beliefs. I affirm the truth. I am prosperous, and I am prosperous because I know that I am prosperous. Now, I had never heard that before. I hadn't read that affirmation. I didn't even know what an affirmation was when I made that promise to myself. See, I had just graduated from college. I had an MBA and nothing else, so I thought. And I was staying with my aunt in her 30-foot fifth wheel RV while I looked for a job. I had no car, so I took the bus wherever I needed to go. It was 35 cents a ride. And the day came when I was down to my last 35 cents. Now that meant that I could take the bus somewhere, but I didn't have enough money to get home. And I made a conscious decision at that time that said, I am never going to be in this situation again. Now, I didn't have those fancy words. I didn't have an affirmation, but I had the thought and definitely the feeling. I was sitting on a gold mine. I did not know it. Now, did money fall out of the sky like Reverend Doug talked about last week? No. But I found a job. I was able to move into a bigger space. Would have been kind of hard to find something smaller. Oh, and did I mention that at this job I got, my new office mate introduced me to treatment, introduced me to new thought, and eventually to my husband. See, once I made that decision, the universe conspired in my favor. Of course, I had to do some work for myself. That's the kicker, isn't it? We have to do some work ourselves. Kind of like Rainbow said, you know, you have to drink yourself. You have to do the drinking. You have to do the practicing. See, our beliefs create our experience in this world. So if we are a clear conduit for the divine flow, it's easy and natural for that flow to show up as good in all areas of our lives. Now, if our conduit is clogged with beliefs that block the, well, then we have an issue. So our job, our work to do is in that middle layer of the teaching symbol. If you can imagine the teaching symbol with the big V in the middle and the three levels, that center level is where our work gets done. We clear out the dysfunctional and untrue beliefs that operate as that law. See, we can't pretend they're not there. We can't just say, no, I don't believe that. If we really truly do believe it, we have to work on those beliefs. We have to make sure that logically we eliminate them. We have to bring them to light. Sometimes you have to kind of clean up a little bit. Louise Hay said, you can't clean your house if you can't see the dirt. Now, we don't have to wallow around in the dirt. We just have to see it and then release it with statements of truth. And so let's do a little house cleaning now about maybe some myths that we have around abundance. For example, the first myth, one of the things is we think about great spiritual teachers were poor. And in our culture, Jesus is the example for that. But he really wasn't, he wasn't poor. In the Gospel of Luke, he was born in humble circumstances, but that was due to no room at the inn, not because of the poverty of his parents. You don't check the inn unless you can afford it. So Matthew's birth story has him in the house in Bethlehem, where Mary lived. And when the Magi brought him gifts, the first was gold, which funded his ministry. Jesus had a bookkeeper, which you don't need unless you have money. He wore a seamless robe mixed with rich and poor alike and was supported by the women to whom he preached. Nowhere does it say he couldn't afford something. The famous statement about being hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven, which is within, was a comment about the attachment to wealth and social status of his time. Okay, so the Buddha was wealthy. He rejected both extreme wealth and extreme poverty for the middle way. Muhammad was a wealthy trader and married to a rich widow. Lao Tzu was a respected government official with no indication of poverty. Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, all very well off. So it's time to let go of the myth that spiritual leaders are poor and it's spiritual to be poor. So let's let that one go. Another myth that we carry about is death and loss. So within an infinite oneness, there can be no debt or loss. The universe is. Debt occurs when we agree to pay for something over time. And if you think about it, debt is trust. It's in a consciousness of trust of the flow of money. Or we can be in consciousness of fear, the belief that the universe won't supply our needs. Ultimately, the infinite can't owe itself anything. There's only infinite abundance. And the kind of debt that creates problems comes from the consciousness of lack and distrust of ourselves and universal flow. When I receive a bill in the mail, a teacher a long time ago taught me this: when you receive a bill in the mail, you give thanks that somebody has trusted you with the finances to pay that bill. They've given you that in advance, and now you pay for it. It's a trust thing. And that loss comes when we believe the money is ours. And we believe that there's a limited supply only coming from certain channels. And so if we let go of the possessiveness around money and realize that money is a form of wealth that we use, it comes in, some stays, some goes out, and we just have to let go of that death grip we have on money. It's like the idea when you've heard the story about when the monkey puts his hand in a jar and grabs something and then it can't get the hand out. We have to let go of the death grip on money. Nothing is ever lost in the universe. If we put a claim into the universe to provide us with the amount lost or more and stay open to the flow, we will experience the ever-present opulence of our universe. The ever-present opulence of the universe. Can you imagine? Do you like that word opulence? Just roll it around a little bit. There's a story told of, well, we'll call him a financier, Wall Street hotshot. Perhaps that's the name to give it. And he had an idea. He went to the shore and he saw a fisherman, and the fisherman had in his boat several large fish. And he said, well, how long did it take you to catch these fish? And he said, oh, just a little while. And the banker said, well, why didn't you stay out longer and catch more fish? Well, the fisherman said, I had enough to support my family's needs. And the banker said, but what do you do with the rest of your time now? The fisherman said, well, I sleep late, I fish a little, play with my children, take a nap with my wife, stroll into the village each evening, or I play guitar and sing with my friends. I have a full and busy life. The banker scoffed. He said, I am a Harvard MBA and I could help you. You should spend more time fishing and with the proceeds, buy a bigger boat. And with the proceeds from the bigger boat, you could buy several boats and eventually you would have a fleet of fishing boats. So instead of selling your catch to a middleman, you would sell directly to the processor, eventually opening your own cannery, and you would control the product, the processing, the distribution. You would need to leave the small coastal village, fishing village and move to the big city where you run your expanding enterprise. And the fisherman said, well, okay, but how long will all this take? And the banker said, well, 15, 20 years. But what then? And the banker laughed. And he said, well, that's the best part. When the time is right, you would announce an IPO, sell your company stock to the public, and become very rich. You would make millions. And then what? The banker said, well, then you would retire, move to a small coastal fishing village where you would sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a nap with your wife, stroll to the village in the evenings where you could play your guitar and sing with friends. What do you think? What do you think the fisherman did? Well, see, the source of all of our good is that infinite source. The source, the one source, the source of all is infinite. It is never depleted. It never runs dry. It does not withhold. It does not restrict. It does not punish. It expresses the nature of its infinite abundance constantly. See, we can limit our experience of it, but it is never limited. We can block the flow with our beliefs, with our feelings. Maybe we feel undeserving, not good enough, somebody else has more or less, or any of the myths that we might look at. So we have to become good at receiving good. And we must actively and consciously expand our mental equivalent, that which we imagine, expand our mental equivalent and our idea of normal. If we're going to embody more of that infinite good, we have to bring a bigger vessel to the ocean to take in more. And we remember that our receiving does not take anything from anyone else. There is an infinite flow. It's not a finite pie where we get one piece. And there's another idea too that we have about shame and fitting in. So maybe if we were raised in a shame-based home, a church or school, or somebody that said that we were bad or that we did things wrong, or highly charged things like, we don't talk about money, sex, politics, all of this divine, when rightly understood, is divine energy. And instead, sometimes we learn we're just wrong, or we have too much or not enough. Our parents didn't know how to deal with these feelings, so maybe they fought, overspent, underspent, whatever else. And we learned to keep quiet and fit in, or we fought it by acting out. So sometimes people are afraid that if we have a great deal more money, it would cost us our friends and we'd be disloyal to the culture, which we're familiar. See, I'm the sixth of 8 children, so you can imagine there's not a lot of expendable cash in my youth. And my experience with money was limited to wanting more. And one of the limitations I had to let go of was that I would earn more money than my father. See, he was the breadwinner and that was it. So one of the things that happened that demonstrates this is when we moved to Austin. We didn't know anybody in Austin, had no jobs, nothing. And eventually I told a man at church I was looking for a job. And when I told him how much I wanted, he said, oh, to make that much, you have to go into business for yourself. And I realized later that that was his limited thinking, not mine. And I did get a job paying me more than what I originally wanted. See, we have to recognize that we live in a constant flow of divine wealth. It's not my wealth. I just get to play with it. But it belongs to all of us. There's only one source, one infinite source, everywhere present. Everybody is part of that. So here's an affirmation for you. This again is from the Science of Mind textbook. Ernest Holmes writes this: I always have an abundance of money, an abundance of whatever it takes to make life happy and opulent. There is a continuous movement toward me of supply, of money, all that I need to express the fullest life, happiness, and action. It's all there. It's all there. The source, the headwater of our flow, is infinite beyond our comprehension. Yet it's not out there, remote infinite, but an intimate infinite. The kingdom of God is at hand. We're reminded that all of the infinite that God has is ours. And so we open to this source. We learn to receive, we learn to assimilate, we learn to release, all in a healthy balance with that consciousness of trust. And so as we become aware of this flow of money in our lives, we see how we enact the nature of the universe. Everything in the process of giving, retaining, releasing. And so if we're experiencing flow difficulties, that's a nice way to say that, isn't it? Flow difficulties. It may be time to do something to clear out the stuckness. Get rid of the mist that you're holding. Are you open to receive? Are you open to creating a greater opening? Do you care enough about yourself to realize you deserve to be in the flow? Do you trust the infinite flow enough to realize that we are in gratitude and gracefully, joyfully release as well? See, money is that divine idea that supports and embodies the divine flow. That's why they call it currency. It's in the flow. We become at peace with that truth of flow. Our finances reflect that peace. The naturally abundant nature of the divine shows up everywhere in our lives, and we live in joyful anticipation of the flow. So I leave you with this quote from Creative Mind. Wake up. Your word is all powerful. Your consciousness is one with omnipotence. Your thought is infinite. Your destiny is eternal and your home is everlasting heaven. Realize the truth. I'm living in a perfect universe. It always was perfect and always will be perfect. There was never a mistake made. There are no mistakes being made, and there never will be. I live in the great and eternal universe of perfection. Let's say this together. I live in the great and eternal universe of perfection. From cause to effect, from beginning to end. Again, from cause to effect, from beginning to end. And the world's all right, and I know it. Let's repeat that. The world's all right, and I know it. So let's take that into our meditation this morning. The world's all right, and I know it. And so as we recognize the peace, the power, the omnipotence, the love, the speed, the peace, the wonder of the universe, in this day of grand rising, we simply start with a gratitude, with thank you. Thank you, Divine Spirit. Thank you, wholeness. Thank you for this love, this light, this trust. And as I speak my word today, I speak it in the first person, knowing that there is one power, one presence that lives in and through and as me. It is that in which I live and move and have my being. And what is true for me is true for each and every person listening to this in this very moment. Life is abundant. There is more than enough. I gratefully receive. I consciously accept. And I give from my heart, open and receptive, giving and receiving, always in the flow. And I know this is true also about the flow of divine health. Always breathing in, exhaling, perfect life, perfect assimilation, mm, perfect love, perfect relationships, everything in divine right order, in harmony with peace and wonder and curiosity, divine qualities. And so, with abundance, with health, with relationships, and also with that divine creative expression, living in the flow, giving from the time and talents, the treasure, creating this beautiful life, honoring spirit. And so I give thanks. I'm so grateful for this life, for the relationships in my life, for the abundant flow, and for perfect health. I let it be as I release this word into the law which simply does what it does best. It creates, it manifests. And so as I watch this unfold with a joyful expectancy, my heart is filled with love, with peace. Mm. And so I let it be. I can just relax in it, let it be. And so it is.